You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, to set a tone for our conversation on the impact on democratic rule following the spate of coups on the continent of Africa, let's listen to this background by our correspondent, Abdusalam Jibril.
The hail of gunfire, which woke residents of Libreville, the capital of Gabon, on Wednesday, 30th August 2023, signified the latest military coup in Africa and the 10th on the continent since 2017. About a dozen soldiers appeared on Gabonese national television on the fateful morning, announcing the cancellation of recent election results and the dissolution of all the institutions of the republic. Recall that ousted President Ali Omar Bongo was re-elected for a third term, extending his family's half-century rule over the oil-rich Central African country of 2.3 million people. The military overthrow of the government in Gabon, coming a month after a similar development in the Republic of Niger, is raising concerns about the future of democracy in Africa. Thousands of Nigerians have been demonstrating in Niamey, the nation's capital, to demand that France withdraw its troops from their country. The current wave of coups began in 2019 when President Omar al-Bashir of Sudan was deposed by the Sudanese armed forces following mass demonstrations calling for his ouster. The following year, parts of the Malian armed forces initiated a mutiny which was followed by a coup. In 2021, Mamadi Doumbouya ousted Alpha Condé of Guinea, dissolving the government and constitution in a broadcast that was televised on state television. Last year, Burkina Faso experienced a coup d'etat. The military made a television announcement that President Roch Kabore had been removed from office. 9 months later, the military leader Paul-Henri Damiba was deposed in the country's second coup in a year as Army Captain Ibrahim Traoré took charge, dissolving the transitional government. In July this year, the Presidential Guard of the Republic of Niger detained President Mohamed Bazoum, and the Presidential Guard Commander General Abdurrahmane Tchiani assumed control of a new military junta. These coups have sent shock waves across the continent and beyond, prompting countries like Rwanda and Cameroon to either reject their top military brass or dismiss them entirely. What are the root causes of these coups? How much do the coups affect democracy in Africa? And what must be done to forestall further coups in the future? These will form the crux of discussions shortly.
And to discuss the topic military coups in Africa impact on democratic rule, let's welcome Ambassador Ken Nwachukwu, Nigeria's former ambassador to Mali. Glad to have you join us.
Thank you for having me.
We're also joined by Dr. Adoyi Matthew Omale, Department of International Relations and Diplomacy, Bayes University. The regular. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning.
All right, we are expecting a guest from our Lagos Network Center once he gets in. It's from the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, which of course is not too far off from our network center on Victoria Island in Lagos. But via Zoom from the United Kingdom, Paul Ejime. Paul Ejime is an international affairs analyst. Paul, we're glad to have you on the program this morning.
Thank you for having me. And good morning, Ambassador and Prof, everybody. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right. Well, gentlemen, we have on Good Morning Nigeria focused on different strands of these issues. Some time ago, we were discussing the topic whether democracy was in of the continent. And then suddenly it happened without warning. Also happened, and typically there have been reactions to ECOWAS in the case of Niger and AU in the case of both Niger and Gabon. So our focus today, really, it will be on the impact on democracy of these unconstitutional changes in government. The positive factors have oftentimes been highlighted, but I want to begin with Ambassador Ken Nwachukwu, whom, of course, we're having for his premier appearance on Good Morning Nigeria, at least with me as co-presenter, Nigerian ambassador to Mali. Tell us, Ambassador Nwachukwu, are we paying sufficient attention to the issues that affect nations before the volcanic eruption, for instance, a way of the coup d'etat? In other words, do we just see countries, oh, democracy and election has taken place, somebody has won, X, Y, Z. In the case of Mali, are we paying sufficient attention?
Democracy, as you know, was reborn on the African continent in the 1990s. It was more of an epiphany following so many decades of military rule. And it was considered to be the best form of government relative to military governance. Today, what we are experiencing is perhaps we are exploring what I call the viral load of political, socio-political malaise in the system, because democracy comes with certain expectations, and when the practitioners of democracy refuse to implement that, then there is a gap between expectations of the people and the performance of these people. It's only a matter of time before they'll call them to order, and this particular patient would either require a transfusion or an emergency care. Democracy, as it were, today is actually on life support. Because of the activities of politicians, there has been a lack of correlation between promises and expectations. That is what we have today.
Well, what is really the core issue in Africa, democratically, that doesn't seem to work?
I referenced what we have currently as a viral load of social-political malaise. And behind this, there are other comorbidities.
Yes.
And what are these? Unemployment is there. You find that many African youth, men and women, are running away from Africa. In the country where I served, as ambassador to Mali, we were receiving somewhere between 25 and 30 Nigerians every week. And many of them on their way to Europe, following the train of Jagba, running away. And it is not just them. You have other countries who are following them, and many of them are dying in the Sahara Desert, drowning off the coast of Libya, and all that. That is actually lack of performance. We're also seeing a situation where you're seeing plain kleptocracy going on. People are beginning to see, did we forsake the military for a new band of bandits? We didn't ask for that. How is it that people fought, lost their lives everywhere, including in this country, and what you have is a new set of overlords who do not care about the people? People want to see that you match pronouncement with actions in terms of social welfare, infrastructural development, healthcare. All of these things are actually in the negative. So long as you're not able to do that, questions will be asked, they'll come back to you, they'll come to hunt you, as it were. So if you like, it's more like a payback time. People are asking, did you just gaslight us, or you sold us a dummy?
All right, thank you very much, Ambassador Ken Nwachukwu, for your opening comments. Let's also join Paul Ejime in the UK with us via Zoom. Paul, you listened to the launch of Ambassador Nwachukwu's contribution. Let's also have your take on this. And as I asked earlier, are we paying sufficient attention to what Ambassador Nwachukwu very rightly in his analogy now referred to as the political comorbidities or socio-political comorbidities that have been threatening our democracy on the continent?
Well, it's interesting to have politics and health and mobility. It tells you how, the whole thing has deteriorated. But I cannot agree more with the ambassador. In fact, a colleague, while I was coming on this program, was saying, why are we talking about impact? What about the causes, the root causes? And then that is the big elephant in the room, Kingsley, that we have not paid sufficient attention. Like you said, from the 1990s, that was when it's as if we are going back there instead of moving forward. Because remember, in those days, we had military regimes all over the place. You had regimes, one government in the city, another one in the bush, and so on and so forth. Are we retrogressing? Are we going back there? And he pointed at it. There are so many factors, but one of them is the practitioners. Because the problem for me is really not about democracy or whatever system of government you want to call it. You may have a very wonderful constitution, Kingsley, but the implementation, that is where the devil lies. It is the practitioners, politicians in particular. They are not, their disposition is what is taking us back. They are not behaving as if they are servants. They have become masters. They are amassing wealth. They've become selfish. They are greedy. They are corrupt. They are nepotic. Yeah, I mean, everything that you find in the negative sense is there. Don't let us fool ourselves about this issue that democracy equates to election. That is a big mistake, and that is what they have done. They now want to organize the election regularly and tell you, well, we are democratic. But that, is further from there. Democracy, election cannot equate democracy. There are other things, rule of law, fundamental human rights, and the fact that you have to deliver on a number, some people have even coined the word dividends of democracy. Well, whether it's a dividend or whatever, but it is the basics. That is, you must, if you made a promise, you have to live by it. But here we have politicians in Africa, they are not even, you can't keep, hold them on their words. In fact, tell me the difference between some of the many parties that you have. One, some of them are one party in the morning, the next thing they are another party in the night or in the afternoon. So there is no principle about what, in what they are doing. And they think they can take the people for a ride. That is why when now they make peaceful change impossible, that is when violent change become. It's not as if the military that they have the solution. No, but people are looking for the alternative. When you push a goat to the wall, it will kick. That is what is happening. But ask me, coup d'etat or military rule, that is not the solution. But unless and until those who have been given, who say they have been elected or they have rigged elections, if they do not behave, we will continue. I asked the question from 2019, Sudan. We have had 8. And about how many countries in West Africa, in ECOWAS region? 4. In Central Africa, Chad, and then Sudan is there. Which country next? You can see there's a contagion. There seems to be a domino effect. And unless we do something to stop this train, it's going to cost us a lot. You talk about impact. And the impact can be very, very drastic, catastrophic, and dangerous. And we must stop this train.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ejime. You have loads of experience covering countries at war, civil war and all that. And I believe you have, a collection of opinions from people who have gone through this in their country. Now, like you said, we have 8 coups in just 2 years. And it's already sending jitters down the spine of leaders across Africa. Why are they jittery if they think they are doing the right thing and doing the right thing by the people?
They are guilty because they are not. They say the guilty conscience. You know, what do they say it? If you are guilty, that is when you have to fear whatever happens. But if you have a clean conscience, you fear no, no reprisals or no whatever it is. But these people are guilty because look at it. Look at those who are. Let's take Niger for instance. Imagine those who are saying that ECOWAS should go to war. You look at it and it's laughable because these are some of the people who are who created the situation that we are in. They altered the constitution of their countries for third term, tenure elongation, some rigged the election. Many of them have opponents in jail or they have driven them outside the country. There is no employment. There is no light. There is no, what is there? The services are not there. That is why you have our leaders going, traveling abroad on what you call medical tourism. So where have they, or is it education? They have not delivered. And that is where the problem lies. And if you don't, it's only a matter of time before people begin to ask questions. And I want also to hold the electorate, the people to account, because they are part of this problem. They tell me, when they say they have won election, for instance, Gabon, Omar Bongo, he was going to be, declared winner with 64%. Okay, who are the people? You see them dancing. You know, it's a cult scene they are living. They will make people begin to dance. Women come out and shout their names as if they are doing anything good. So the people have to now begin to ask, you hold those they elect, or even when you didn't elect them, tell them you didn't elect them by your action. People power. Let it take root. It's done before in Burkina Faso, the Arab Spring. The politicians in Africa seem to understand that in Africa, they do not have the staying power. You give them 2-3 weeks, the Africans are tired. They go back to normal things. But you see in Europe, you find people holding their pots and their spoons, hitting at it for months. Have you noticed that? So there has to be that resistance. There has to be that aggressiveness in demanding for power because it belongs to the people. You don't have to succumb. You don't make them take you for a ride. So let me stop here and allow the others to have a say.
All right.
Kingsley is watching.
Thank you very much, Paul. That's actually a good point to pause. We'll come back to you in the course of the conversation. Earlier, we indicated that we'll be joined by a guest from our Lagos Network Center. He's in the studios right now, Professor Joshua Olusegun Bolariwa. He heads the Division of Security and Strategic Studies at the Institute of International Affairs, NIA, on Victoria Island. Professor Bolariwa, we're glad to have you this morning.
Thank you, sir.
Straight away, let's have your take on the issue on the table. Many argue that the changes that we have been seeing on the continent, not in line with the constitutions of the respective countries, that those changes are a manifestation of the consequence of democracy having been stripped of its essence and tenets in most parts of the continent. What's your take? What's your take?
Those changes in most cases are not actually reflecting the frameworks or whatever democracy has in stock. Basically, it is expected that democracy comes with development, democracy comes with reforms, democracy comes with good governance. But basically, some of these countries that have experienced coups or what we call military rule, or what I have described as resurgence of military coups in Africa, is as a result of bad governance. It's as a result of sit-tight attitude of our leaders. Take, for example, the case of Gabon that we are discussing now. How can a president be ruling a country since 2009, which taking over from his own father Omabongo between 1967 and 2009, and himself, Ali Bongo, taking it up again in an arranged election, and since 2009 till now, he sought for re-election in 2016, and another election was just held on August 26th, just last week, and we can see the attitude. It's a sit-tight attitude. In 2018, constitutionally, the Parliament, the National Assembly of Gabon, decided that they will change their system of voting and balloting to what they call two-round ballot system. In the two-round ballot system, it means that you will vote for a representative from your locality, your region, into the National Assembly, and simultaneously, you will also vote for your presidential candidates in the election. But just in April 2023, Ali Bongo's government quickly changed the constitution to suit his own purpose, his own personal interest, so that he can be re-elected and continues his sit-tight attitude. And that was the immediate problem to this ouster of this Ali Bongo. So majority of the African leaders, particularly in some of these countries who have experienced coups, there have been presence of bad governance, so much poverty. There is so much poverty in those countries. And apart from bad governance, apart from poverty, people also have, they don't have access to social provisions, provisions of good infrastructure, provisions of electricity, some other reforms that will make the people to be very happy. So most of these governments are just changing the constitution to suit their purpose. So sit-tight attitude of our African leaders. There are so many other issues leading to this, from poverty, bad governance, sit-tight attitude, changing the constitution to suit their own personal motives so that they can be re-elected. So you will now see that when the election was now held in Gabon, people became very angry for just changing the constitution or the ballot system, which had been already legislated since 2018 to be having a two-round system of ballot system. But they changed it overnight so that they can suit their purpose. So eventually, during the election on August 26, Gabonese woke up, and while they were voting, they were stylishly, constitutionally, as they have tinkered with the constitution, that they can now only do one ballot voting, whereby you can only vote for a representative from your locality, your region or province into the National Assembly, or vote for a presidential candidate. So they were partially disenfranchised not to vote, and that was a very, I'll call it bureaucratic rigging. So it's another political corruption on the part of the leaders. So poverty, so much social exclusions, so much bad governance, and eventually changing the constitution to only suit your own personal motive. All of these have contributed to the problems we have experienced in the resurgence of coups in Africa.
Professor Bolarinwa, thank you so much for your opening comment. And, you know, decades of corruption, repression, and inequality with time brew contempt and frustration. A toxic mix, you know, motivating people to call for change and accountability. Let's bring in Dr. Omale here.
Yes, thank you very much. I will first look at it from a very theoretical perspective. Most of these issues that have been put in context by other panelists have been looked at from various theories, that theories of political science, theories of international relations have looked at it. For example, you can situate the spate of coup in Africa from the underdevelopment and dependency theory, which is, we call it UDT. The UDT was propounded by scholars like Samir Amin, Gunther Frank, you know, and it has always been there. It's one of the theories that every elementary political scientist talk about, and it talks about the center-periphery relationship, the unequal relationship between the advanced countries and the developing countries. and how this relationship has been very, very unequal, leaving developing countries pauperized, leaving developing countries struggling for development. Apart from UDT, there are the modernization school, there are the functionalist school. There are several theories that explain the pathetic situation of African countries. Now, having come to that, there are the opposite of democracy is totalitarianism. And in Africa, we have seen a lot of it. And from the discussion from other panelists here, you could see that military regime itself, in as much as is not a good form of government, because there are various forms of government. It could be monarchy, it could be democracy, it could be totalitarianism, it could be... So there are various forms of government. The debate is which of the forms of government is the best. That is the key debate. Yes, democracy for now is what nobody who have disputed the fact. Simple definition by Abraham Lincoln: government for the people, by the people, and for the people. Yes, good. In Africa, are the people involved in governance? Are they involved in the democracy? Because what we see is that there's a wide gulf between the people who are supposed to have the power and the leadership. Even where the democracy is on, you see that there's a class of the political elites who are untouchable, who wield so much powers, either at the National Assembly or at the presidential level. And then when you look at it, the difference between the type of democracy we practice here is that in the military regime, which is basically autocratic and totalitarian in nature, there is virtually no parliament. So only the leader and his few cronies, they are in charge of power. So they take the decision for the rest of the country. Now, in a democracy, you have democratic institutions like the parliament or the assembly, as the case may be. You have the judiciary, and then you have the presidency or the presidential team. Now, why we opt for a democracy is that in a democracy, you have more people participating in governance. You have more people, there's a lot of consensus building. There's a lot of debates, deliberation, and then laws are passed, and then these laws are supposed to be implemented. But in military totalitarian regimes, you just have a one-man dictator who takes all the decisions, whether they are good or bad, and then it is run down everybody's throats. Now, the two forms of government have its advantages and disadvantages. In a totalitarian regime, the totalitarian leader or the maximum ruler takes quick decisions. Decisions are very quick to take. And whether they are right or wrong, they are quick to take. In a democracy, it takes a long process. You can imagine in the case of Nigeria, where creation of states have been debated. It's only the military that have been able to create states. Because of the...
Let's talk about these issues that is causing a ripple.
That is what I'm saying, ma. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
The issues are that there are social exclusions. What are the causes of this social exclusion? Is the way we practice democracy. We discuss, we take a lot of time. The democracy is not flowing from the people. At the end of the day, the leadership that emerge in Africa, they still behave like the same military that we criticize. Absolute power, excluding a lot of people from the process. And then when the elections that are supposed to lead to popular choice of leadership, these elections are often fraught with a lot of irregularity. That is the point that I'm making. So you hardly distinguish between totalitarian regimes in Africa and democratic regimes. That is the point I'm making.
Is it because we borrowed democratic tenets from other countries and it seems not to be working in Africa?
No, democracy is a universal phenomenon.
Yes.
It's not about being borrowed. It's a universal phenomenon that is very appealing.
Yes.
The tenets of democracy, like we said, is rule of law, very important. Periodic, free and fair election, very, very critical. Okay? Existence of political parties and institutions. electoral umpire management bodies, independence of electoral management bodies, participation of the people, women, youth, children, elderly, everybody should be able to participate in one way or the other. Now, what we are experiencing in Africa is that this pattern of democratic practice do not exist. And that is where the problem is coming from.
All right, Dr. Mali,
Yeah.
thank you very much there for your intervention. Let's bring in again Ambassador Ken Nwachukwu. Well, many ways to look at this. Some have advanced the argument that what we have, mostly in Africa, isn't democracy, but civilian rule. And so the strands of authoritarianism that Dr. Mali was referring to, those strains are pretty common. So democracy ordinarily is people-centric. That flows from its definition. And being people-centered also relates to the sovereignty notion of democracy. Why is it that political actors in most parts of Africa jettison the people-centric nature of democracy and instead begin to imitate the standards of autocratic rule?
I think I listened to Dr. Mali and the distinctions he made. While they are very, very appealing, I have my little concerns on that, because on paper we do have such categorizations as civil rule, military rule, autocratic rule. Unfortunately, in Africa, what we have is a conflation of all these rules. We have spun our own political culture, one that excludes everyone. People would see coup d'etats as a violent change of government, if you like, an assumption of authority through an illegal means. Somehow you will also discover that the civilians whom we entrusted our party, our policies, our lives to, because what we have is a social contract. If you look at John Locke and in that era, and I think it was the French philosopher
Montesquieu.
But what they talked about separation of powers, and you're talking about the sovereignty of the people. This is why you come to the people every John Locke and John Locke was there.
Thomas Hobbes.
Yes. Now you come back to the people every 4 years to renew the mandate. What we do have today is actually a coup of the political elite against the masses, because they no longer need to come to you. There is a selection process. They rig the elections, rig themselves into power, don't need to listen to you, and they win in spite of you. Mm-hmm. That is, you don't vote, they get a victory. You vote, they get a victory. It is skewed. So the first coup that we have had is a coup against the masses, against the electorate.
So the masses don't matter?
They don't matter. You're unimportant.
So is the political class staging a coup against the notion of sovereignty?
That is what you are saying here. Because if you have to, look, I think it was Napoleon that in exuberance of power decided to crown himself. Yeah. Now what we have seen is the political class has decided to crown itself, because whether you vote for them, some of them have said it, you vote for me, you don't vote for me, I will win. So they decide the election. I think this politician that says that, I think it was Joseph Stalin that says it's not those who vote that make policies, that determine democracy, it's those who count. So if you look at who counts it. So what we are seeing is a situation where you don't matter. And if you don't matter, you begin to create that divide, that is angst against the political class. So first of all, you are now saying military is coming in. Okay, let me explain to you this concept of overthrow of the masses. You talked about separation of powers. If you have a separation of powers whereby the political parties don't debate any issues, they say this is a policy that has come from the executive, that You simply run through it and now say, those were I, say I. How do you determine the days? The ayes have it, and that moves. You don't have any critical analysis to say whether it's beneficial to the people or not. You also have a culture of bow and go. Somebody who is dripping in corruption, questionable character and antecedents comes in because he's one of us. What we're having is intiwantiwani politics. Namu namu. So the guy comes in, he's one of us, take a bow and go. This is a person who naturally should belong to Kirikiri. And he walks up here and then he tells you, and he says, one of us, we know him. How much of him do you know, is the question. So if you do that without interrogating his past, doing the needful, you become complicit in this coup d'etat against the populace, against democracy itself.
Against sovereignty.
Against sovereignty. It's a budgeting process that we have seen going on. So we now have our own form of democracy, a democracy whereby elite has been hijacked. By the way, when you talk about the military is also a military elite. The military is elite. What we do have today, unfortunately, in Niger and all that, is I see that a substitution of elite. If you look at the current henchman in Gabon. He was there as he was a diplomat, by the way. He was a military attaché. Military attaché is a military diplomat in Morocco and in Senegal for 10 years. He's been in the corridors of power. He was ADC to the former president. So he knows where all the bodies are buried.
And a family member.
As a family member. So what you're now seeing, I think what they have there could be, for all you care, is a first-hand bargain if the past is prologue. Because what we are going to have over time is an inauguration of an immediate effect syndrome. Because we have a situation with the military where something's happened, they say, they create with immediate effect. Immediate effect means no debate. And with coming with it, allied with that is you then have a suppression. The first decree suspends the constitution, with it human rights, with it your rights as a people, right to protest, right to anything, and even right to proscribe media. So why people are jubilating, I think we're having a pact to the devil. It might end badly. So it is not yet Uhuru. What I see here is a substitution of military elite with civilian elite with military elite. And I see that more like a first-hand bargain.
Juma, I know you want to ask a question. I want to throw this into the mix so that we also take it along. Bola Rinwa may wish to take this, or Paul Ejime may also wish to take it. I know Omale may also wish to respond. Now, the wave of democratic rule from the 1990s following the constitutional conferences, again in French West Africa or Francophone countries on the continent, led us to the notion that, look, democracy is the very best, and so there will be an abhorrence of unconstitutional takeover of governments. But we are now seeing constitutional aberrations by way of the military coming back. Now, is this ideologically different from the spate of coups that the continent witnessed in the early years, say in the early 60s? Olympio overthrown in Togo, Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana, on and on, in different parts of the continent that many likened, of course, to the consequence of the Cold War at that time. There appears to be no Cold War impact in this case. Is this that Africans themselves are now realizing to say, look, come on, what our political actors are doing do not square with the needs of our people. And so, if you like, it looks like some Ataturk idea has come in terms of demanding better governance. But Ambassador Nwachukwu wants that, look, it probably might be a dangerous dance with, he says, the devil. What's your thought on this? Who takes Paul Ejime first, and then, of course, we'll go over to Lagos.
You see, yes, Kingsley, that is what you have when there are no rules. I think you were going to leave it to, and this is an example of what happens when there are no rules. Usually, human beings, we forget it, political animal, but we are also going to be made to obey rules, to go by the rules. It is the the lack of that discipline by political leaders that leads to. They will tell you everything is in the Constitution. Like I said, Constitution can be wonderful. The American Constitution, you can hold it in the palm of your arm. It has everything. You can read it. But it's not the volume that matters. It is the the sincerity that you bring to it. It is the honesty. It is the commitment. It is the determination to make things work. In Africa, where corruption is, endemic, you will have somebody corrupt, maybe bring two people that have committed the same offense. Instead, you will want the person that is not from your place to face the law, but is a thief, but is a thief, so he shouldn't face the law. These are some of the issues that are happening. Impunity. The politicians are getting away with blue murder. And that is why I said, listen, that the electorate, those who forget, yes, I heard the saying that the coup has been organized against them. But they can also recover. They can take back the power. They can take power because the citizen has powers. But it has not been tested. We are just there thinking that the fact is that, we just allow these people to get away with certain things. And when we protest, it's going to be 1 or 2 weeks and everybody goes back. Fela says, everybody, you are not ready to die. You want to go to heaven, but you don't want to die. How does that happen? There has to be that, even in independence, people had to spill blood. There were martyrs. There were people who led the revolutions. So that is what is lacking now. Everybody appears to be, even civil society. You find that, look at the reaction to the two governments. When it was Jonathan, you had in Lagos, people had occupied Lagos. But for 8 years, nobody occupied anywhere. What happened? What happened to civil society? So you see that everybody has now become complicit. The coups let me go back to your question about coups. Coups in those days were partly engineered by the imperialists during the Cold War. If they didn't like you, they have a way of removing you. That is why Nkrumah, Sankara, and others, these were people who, because they are not following the liberal theory of the West. They have a way, because the West also, let us look at the external factors. They want some people that will be, they are stooges, people they will manipulate, they will manage. And then it becomes a combination of that external force and then internal forces when the citizens are not able to defend their rights, are not able to defend their rights, are not able to demand accountability. In the days of Gani Fawemi, you will lose count of how many times he has taken governments to court. And people thought he was mad. No, he was testing, making sure that things were done the way they ought to be. But now, I think everybody has become, even the military, they have become politicized. They are also looking for oil wells. They are bunkering. Everybody, in fact, some of them, if you ask them give them a pistol now, they will probably shoot themselves because they don't know how to handle it. Because everywhere, it is what is the need for me? What is the percentage? You go to the customs, you go to the uniform groups, they are no longer functioning the way they ought to. The rule is just there, either ignored totally or observed in breach. But you cannot have a system run on that kind of, free fall. there has to be rules that will govern everybody. If you are if you have a vehicle, it doesn't matter who you are. You had in Great Britain here, the Prime Minister was brought to pay for because he didn't have his belts on. Kingsley, imagine our dignitaries there, those who have about 40 vehicles in their convoy. Will you ask them to come and put on their seat belt if that was the rule? These are some of the issues. So both the political class and the led and the leaders, they have to do their part to be able to get back to where, I don't care what you call it, whether it's democracy. After all, African society existed before this democracy. Didn't we? How did we manage? Even in counseling, in handling disputes. Do you know that in Mali, there is what they call Toguna, where if you have a society in a community, everybody will meant to sit under a very short, it's constructed in a way that you have to bend to get into that hut. The idea is that you cannot get so angry to raise your hand because that the shortness of that will bring you down. You were supposed to sit in there and settle your cases before you leave. That is...
Paul Jimmy, thanks a lot. Again, we have to pause you so that we can get the views from other panelists. But just to indicate, yeah, you made some very valuable points. But I think that we should also acknowledge the fact that over the past decade or more, with the level of insecurity in Nigeria, for instance, we've had officers and men of the Nigerian military pay the supreme price in order to ensure that the rest of us are safe and secure. I mean, the Northeast, just in Niger recently, we saw what happened in Zamfara and elsewhere around the country. We have had men who have been in the trenches against what they would say the outlaws or the bad guys. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We took a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation.
You're welcome back, and you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria. We've been discussing coups in Africa and impact on democratic rule. We still have our guest here in the studio. Let me quickly bring in Dr. Omale. Dr. Omale, the interconnection of African countries combined with shared challenges of insecurity, governance, and social development makes it imperative to prevent a further escalation of coups across the country now, or triggering, a crisis across Africa. The question is, we have so much. Why are we so poor that the masses of Africa cannot enjoy our God-given gift that God has given us?
Thank you very much for the question. One thing you should know is that with the spate of military coup, instability brings a lot of distortion in the economy. Then once there's a military coup, it's like starting all afresh. The new leaders have their own ideas completely. All what has been built over the years, some will be thrown away, new programs will now be introduced, a lot of money will now be put into beginning another new transition. Those are the impacts. The impacts on the economy is massive. Number one, once there's a military coup, there's going to lead to a lot of distortions. Distortions in terms of foreign direct investment. People who ordinarily will come and invest, they will be very cautious in bringing their money. Or also, even indigenous companies that are operating, once there's a military coup, they are going to go out to look at, especially established institutions that might be a threat to the military regime. They are going to go after some of these companies. Now, so those are the immediate impact, and it will take 10, 20 years to recover because you are retooling an entire system. Now, before they begin to conduct elections, begin to pump money into voter registration, putting all the mechanism in place before another constitutional government is introduced, billions of naira will be put in. I remember when we were in the university in the 90s, the IBB transition was not ending. It was billions of naira were put into it. Zero party, they will do that one, they will cancel it. They will do constitutional conferences, gather people, they will. So all this process, and that is what is taking us back. Resources that ordinarily should be channeled towards providing roads, providing infrastructure, providing power, will now still be put into trying to institutionalize a democratic culture, which which is supposed to get better, just like old wine. It's supposed to be getting better. You flounder, you adjust it, you tinker with it, and then you move forward. But in Africa, what is happening is that as soon as the democracy is beginning to settle down a bit, boom, the military takes over. And then when the military takes over, we are back again, and then we begin to start all over again, putting a lot of resources that should be channeled towards development. So military takeover has a lot of impact on the economy of African countries. And this economic impact is very unfortunate, because all the resources that we should have been using for development is now being channeled into re-establishing new democratic institutions. They will have to now do census again, they will have to do so many things, all in the name of trying to organize a credible transition program, and it is not good for the continent.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Mali. Professor Bolarinwa, I want to return to you in Network Studios in Lagos. Well, there's again the dependency syndrome that Africa grapples with. One of the major donors to the African continent, say for instance, the EU, probably has been shell-shocked by what is playing out in Africa. A number of other development partners in the Americas and elsewhere in Asia are equally shell-shocked, because we know that they have pumped in tons of cash as well as other logistic support for purposes of elections. Is this also a time for them to rethink the scope and purposes of their support away from, if I may say, mere elections? Mere elections, free, fair, and credible, all right, but to go to the heart of the matter, that is to say, to actually help, if that is their wish, in entrenching democratic tenets and essence. Because in all of these instances where they may have, where aid may have flowed in from them, all the issues that you gentlemen have raised on this program are usually in abeyance, whether it's rule of law in the real essence of it, a coup against this sovereign, that's to say the defeat of the people, as well as arbitrariness that ordinarily shouldn't hold sway, instead of just talking about mere periodic elections. Should development partners also now begin to look at, hey, look, what has happened to Africa in the last couple of decades? Did we spend right? And if we spent, how come there is a reversal of democratic governance on the continent?
Thank you, sir. You know, every democracy has its own challenges, and it is also not peculiar to Africa. We have also seen it in India, even America, that is well known for its very good democracy. Its democracy has its own challenges. But coming to development aid, especially EU, one of the very cardinal principle of EU giving aid to African countries is that you must have democracy, and that you must hold elections, successful elections, and the elections, they have to be credible, and that if they are not, you will not have access to those aids. So EU, DFID, even Canada is a donor country. All of them have given all of these conditions, conditionalities, and certain frameworks to follow in assessing such funds. For example, after the coup in Niger, EU instantly announced the stoppage of its aid given to that country. The same thing happened to Mali, Burkina Faso, and now I am sure it will happen to Gabon. So basically, also, I think the European Union or any other donor country, instead of withdrawing or withholding the aid they give. I think they should give other stiffer policies, conditions, and what other credibility they may put on guard to say, okay, for you to have access to such development aid or aid, this has to be done, this has to be established, which also falls within constitutionality, whereby the process of elections, the process of the electioneering campaigns, the way the elections are conducted, the results, and eventually the inauguration of such administration, which is properly followed, properly ensured. And eventually we'll say, okay, so far so good, this is credible, because we know that elections in even other places, they have challenges, just like what we are witnessing in Africa. But the major problem, one peculiar problem in the context of this African continent, is the sit-tight attitude of African leaders. Nobody has it all. Nobody has monopoly of knowledge. Nobody can think he will do everything all the way. You are not a magician, or you are all not magicians. You just have to do your best and leave the rest for others. If African leaders don't stay so long in power, 4 years, maybe another second term of 4 years, in some countries it's 5 years, while in some countries they have 6 years. Whatever you have done in those years, good or the other way, other people have seen it. We pick up from those challenges, correct them constitutionally. We ensure rule of law. We ensure independence of the judiciary, independence of the legislature, independence even of that of the executive. If all of these arms of government work together and ensure this rule of law, then eventually, if the leaders have their true mind and they have the interests of the citizens at the back of their hearts, what we need is good governance. What we need is to reduce this poverty. There is so much poverty everywhere. And when there is poverty, people are hungry. And when people are hungry, people are angry. So beyond this, apart from good governance that we need, social provisions, basic amenities being provided, access to education at all levels, people will be happy. Provision of employment opportunities, people will be happy. When people are engaged, when people are working, when people are sure of any salary or a stipend at the end of the month, people will not have time to go into any criminal activity. They want to gather and do something that will be inimical to the well-being of the nation, or that will distort or affect the economy of the nation. Then the leaders should also be held accountable. The leaders should be accountable, they should be prudent, they should also do what they should listen to the people, public opinion. Over there abroad, even if they want bad policies to be implemented, but when people say this is not good, this is not saying, this is not going to help us, this will not go the right way or the way we want it, government have a rethink. They rethink their policies and they do what the people want. But at the same time, if we can make sure we entrench our democracy through good governance, if we can make provision of basic infrastructure facilities, if people have access to basic education at all levels, even to tertiary level. For example, in Nigeria now, we heard that even after the president had made pronouncement that fees hike in tertiary schools will be reversed or reduced or negotiated, we see some schools still announcing hike in school fees. And this will not go well because many people are still unemployed. There is so much poverty in the land. If government can correct all of this, which is also prevalent in most African states. And
Professor Bolarinwa, indeed, you've raised some pertinent questions, and we have to come back here to the studio. Let me come to Ambassador Nwachukwu. Talking about AIDS, most of these countries that have had coup d'etats recently depend mostly on AIDS, like Niger, and they have deep-rooted relationships with their former colonial masters. Now they are saying, we don't need you to run our country for us. We want to manage our resources ourselves. And just, I think on Twitter, I saw last night or in the afternoon yesterday, Niger deciding to sell its uranium at like 200 euros. That's much more than what is being sold, you know, under the Bazoum administration. Now they are saying we want to manage our resources so that we can take our people out of poverty. And they are saying they are not having a coup, they are having a palace revolution. They don't call what they have a coup, they call it a palace revolution to rejig the economy and, you know, make their country at par with other developing countries. What's your take on that? Do they really need the aid? What happens now if the aid is withdrawn? What happens to the people?
You have raised a number of issues, and I think with what you have said, there are so many moving parts out there. I want you to give a context to it. Now, like what Kingsley said before, you are now talking about democracy. Democracy has been held up as the holy grail of development. I want to bring you back to this country, that most of the developmental strides we've made in this country have been made under military regime. All the refineries, 4 of them were built during that period, if you recall. The roads, the stadia, all of them. Apart from, I'm not saying that we are distant. I want to say that those who are giving us aid.
Obasanjo built the National Stadium in Abuja.
Oh, he did. Now, if you are looking, yes, I say most, not all. Yes, but if you are now saying, I'm saying that those giving aid should also be able to correlate aid with good practices. Let us look, for example, what is the cost of democracy? All of us study, we watch the Americans. I remember when Biden came in, he said he wanted to invest on renewable energy. This renewable energy was actually based on need and was voted at the Congress. There was nothing like a constituency project. We are looking at a constituency project of 150 million times 360 for the House, for the National Assembly, for the reps, and then for 109 senators. Where on earth have you seen this level of democracy, the cost? And does it percolate to the electorate? Do you see that in concrete terms? Now, let us move away from Nigeria. I'm just giving an example, because when we now say give other forms of government as the worst, how good is what we are practicing? Is it okay, good? Is it not necessary that those who give us aids should also ask us, what are you doing with what we are giving to you? The democracy you're talking about, does it conform with the best tenets of democracy elsewhere in the world? Because we seem to be practicing a peculiar form of democracy. Then I think the jury is still out on the form of AIDS. If you look at some of the literature on AIDS, sometimes assistance doesn't even help you. It helps to keep you down. It doesn't even allow you to be creative in assisting yourself. That is what we're talking about. When you are suffused with AIDS, you stop thinking for yourself.
Critical thinking.
Is it possible that by asking them, instead of giving us handouts, give us the process, the blueprint of solving our own problems? Perhaps that is what Nigerians are asking for. Now, I was in Mali. In Mali, there is a UN intervention on MINUSMA under Chapter 8 of United Nations. That means interposition force. Don't shoot until you're shot. But every day we're having terrorist attack. Now, until the military administration came of Goita, then they started pushing war, taking the campaign against the terrorists and winning. Because in fighting, they didn't have to go under international humanitarian laws. Do you shoot somebody when they're sleeping, or when he's crying, or when he's raising? They say every terrorist is a terrorist, because when we leave you, you shoot us. So with the Wagner Group, they were able to make more gain, more progress more than the 10 years you've had MINUSMA in there. But it was seen as part of assistance to stem the tide of terror, of extremism in Mali, but they took the ball in their they took their own fate in their own hands. Now, in what we are experiencing in Niger is what I see. I think it's a reconfiguration of the power relations between the metropolitan France and its colonies. Now they are now saying, we are tired of your aids. Let us manage ourselves. If you look that a ton of uranium or so, or a unit of uranium was sold at 400 sefer. And the same is going now for 200.
200 euros.
Euros. You look at that. What has been going on is that that means France has been pillaging these people for years. And if you look at the recalcitrance of the French government, why they are not wanting to leave, France has about 58 nuclear reactors. 80% of its energy needs, light and all that, drawn from nuclear power, and it is supplied from Alit in Agade's area. So they are prepared to go to war, to say, you don't take away this thing from us.
Okay.
But
Ambassador Nwachukwu, so that we don't run out of time.
Yes.
Because the more, the more Ambassador Nwachukwu has been explaining, of course, along with others, the more you see other issues that we have to talk about.
Yes.
Ownership, rights, and control of natural resources by sovereign entities. That's a subject matter we'll revisit on another occasion. As we were also speaking, I'm sure scholars are familiar with this. Why, historically now, why is Haiti often derisively referred to as the poorest country in the Northern Hemisphere? We also know the role that some of these colonial entities play. But there's a question I want to throw first to Ambassador Nwachukwu so that you can give us your diplomatic benefit. The African Union is quick to condemn coups and then to suspend the countries where coups have taken place from participation in all organs of the AU, organs and activities of the AU, and of course ECOWAS also follows suit. I was just wondering, now that we've been discussing the granular issues relating to democracy, rule of law, credible elections, real constitution, and power truly resident in the sovereign and the people, when will the AU move away from its apparent country club relationship amongst its members? We know there's a peer review thing, but when you see the constitution being willfully manipulated, everybody's quiet. When you see the people being ruined, as it were, on account of mismanagement and absence of good governance, everyone is quiet. And then there's a popular uprising or there is a coup, and then you say we are suspending the country. So it looks like it's a country club. Everybody goes to Addis or wherever the meeting takes place and say, look, how now, or Madam, how now, and so on and so forth. Let's be good guys, and so on and so forth. When will the AU move away from this country club disposition and get to the real brass tacks of saying, look, gentlemen, we have to deal with good governance, otherwise we're all in deep trouble?
The peer review mechanism that was set up during the era of President Obasanjo was essentially geared towards that, calling out colleagues to say you're doing the wrong thing, holding their legs to fire. But unfortunately it has failed because bad habits are difficult to drop, to change. What we have is still the old boy syndrome, the backslapping syndrome. Like oh boy or oh girl, the women are very few there, apart from in Zimbabwe, not just Zimbabwe, Zambia, I believe. Tanzania, okay, that they're not there. So that is what you are saying. Look at the same people who are saying, don't cohabit with us, don't deal with us. Museveni has been there since 1986. His son is a major, is head of the army. The wife is a minister. He's prepping his child to take over from him. Biya is 90 years. He's been there since the death of Ahijo. He's a member of AU. Yadima family has been there since 1963 or thereabout. And he was there, the son. There is nothing like democratic space for them. Alassane Ouattara, who came in under contentious circumstances, ran for a second term, changed the constitution to run for a third term, and now he is the person telling us that you have a bad behavior. Rumors have it that he's also prepping for a fourth term. Of course, everybody has actually proposed to take over from him had died. If I were you, I wouldn't actually want to accept that, except you also want to die. So it's better he has to continue until he dies, so that, because chances are that if anybody raises his head to take over from him, he will die. Now, these are the conditions. So when somebody begins to ask these questions, why don't we have good behavior. That will be, it's like charity, it has to start from within. But it's an old habit, and such habits die very hard.
Well,
Dr. Malo, you want to weigh in here very quickly?
Yes.
We are pressed for time.
You see, the African Union is just like he has said, it's peopled by a lot of leaders that honestly they have a questionable antecedents. And like he said, I sympathize with the people of Togo a lot because after the senior Yedema's death, I never knew that the son would just take over in the manner it happened. In Chad, look at what happened when Itno died. The son now took over, and it's a very sad situation for Africa. We should be able to, the African Union should be able to hold its leaders or its members accountable. Should be able to call a spade a spade. It should be able to challenge their tight seat syndrome, as Prof has said. Should be able to come out and say, look, what you are doing in your country is not right and it's not furthering the cause of democracy. It's not that when there's a military coup, you just issue a statement condemning it and so on and so forth.
Sanctions, yeah.
So the African Union and ECOWAS, they need to be proactive to take more interest in the internal practice of democracy among member states.
Okay, Professor Bolarinwa, let's have your final thoughts in 30 seconds, please.
Thank you. I think African Union needs to move from a political club or a political union to a more very pragmatic political association or union whereby you compel member states to do what is right so that it can always give credibility to the existence of that political union. Because if you also look at Equatorial Guinea, the president has been there for more than 40 years. His son is now the vice president also, and he's been sitting in the same place since 2003 when the APRM mechanism was adopted to ensure good governance and development in Africa, and yet we don't have it. And again, even for that peer review mechanism, countries have to develop personal interest in it. It's voluntary. It's not also compulsory. If the AU can make it compulsory and say we have to peer review your governance mechanism, everything you have been doing, so that we can say this is bad or good, then I think these challenges will continue unless the AU takes the bull by the horns.
Professor Joshua Olusegun Bolarinwa, Head Division of Security and Strategic Studies, Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, and I thank you so much for coming on Good Morning Nigeria. Paul Ejime, International Affairs Analyst, former war correspondent and consultant on peace and security and governance communications. We appreciate your input into the conversation. Thank you so much. Dr. Adoyi Matthew Omale, Department of International Relations and Diplomacy, Bayes University, Abuja. Thank you so much for coming. Ambassador Ken Nwachukwu, Nigeria's former ambassador to Mali. We appreciate your input and insight into this conversation. It's been a pleasure having you.
All right, so that's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. We hope you enjoyed our program. Join us again tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Until then, look after yourselves. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Juma Yusuf. Do have a wonderful week.